Hi everyone. This video is a book review about a book that I discovered while I was going on an adventure in the public library. And the title of this book is 100 Things We've Lost to the Internet. And it was written by Pamela Paul with illustrations by Nishant Choksky. I saw this book sitting among other books, but this is the one that really caught my eye. I guess I had some type of pull towards it because I've never really had a good relationship with the internet or with technology ever since I've been introduced to it. I became introduced, or the internet started coming into my life when I was in daycare. And this was the early 90s, so if I graduated kindergarten in 1996, I probably got introduced to the internet maybe around 93-ish or 94-ish when they started bringing computers into the daycare and making us take computer classes. I've never had some type of like, ooh, I want it in my life type of relationship with the internet or with technology. And as I've grown older, that feeling has never really changed. I feel like it's always been intruding on my life. Every level that I get, whether it's a grade level or an age level, it's always somewhere in my life, which I found kind of ironic because I'm communicating with you through the internet. You probably would have never found me if it wasn't for the internet. So there are some things that we have lost, and there are other things that we have found. But today we're going to focus on what we have lost, and we're going to take a walk down memory lane. I certainly did while I was reading this book. I was having multiple flashbacks with every chapter that I came across that the author wrote. I also laughed a lot because it was written in a very funny way, to me personally. It was very tongue-in-cheek, snarky, but very truthful. So, before I get into the book review, let me tell you a little bit about the author, Pamela Paul. This is a photograph of Pamela Paul. It was taken by Rodrigo Cid. It says Pamela Paul is the editor of the New York Times Book Review and oversees book coverage at the Times, where she hosts the weekly book review podcasts. Her previous books include My Life with Bob, How to Raise a Reader, Buy the Book, Parenting Inc., Pornified, The Starter Marriage and the Future of Matrimony, and Rectangle Time, a children's book or a book for children. Prior to joining the New York Times, she was a contributor to The Time and The Economist, and her work has appeared in The Atlantic, The Washington Post, and Vogue. And here's, in the back of the book, there's some information about how to contact her, the name of her website, the illustrations of this book, the cover illustrations and throughout the book were illustrated by Nishant Choksky. But Pamela, the way her writing style and how she wrote this book, it was like you really couldn't pinpoint her age. She had a vast amount of experience. She went back to the times that I had completely forgotten in my mind. I was like, whoa. So I think she's very in tune with popular culture because, she's reading books all of the time. She has to be in tune with what's happening in modern society and in the past. And I saw that come through in her writing style. This book, if I didn't mention it before, was published in 2021 by Crown, which is an imprint of Penguin Random House. So this book came out last year in the autumn. It's relatively new, so be sure to check out other reviews about it as well. Now, as the title says, there are 100 things that we've lost to the internet. I've only written down a couple of the things that really stood out to me and made me have my own personal flashbacks about what we have lost to the internet. So the first thing that Pamela Paul says we have lost to the internet is boredom. Boredom. And I had to pause before I continued reading and think about that. Boredom. We're always having to do something. We're always having to fill up some type of space with activity instead of just being bored. She says, remember boredom? The way it would hang over you when you were stuck in traffic and there was nothing decent on the radio, and time dripped by. You'd be trapped in line at the supermarket, your eyes glazed after having read each headline on every tabloid, wilting by the double mint gum twice. I was just like, what? So she mentions in this chapter, people used to accept that much of life was boring. The word boredom didn't even emerge until the mid-19th century, in part because it was nothing to be remarked upon. Life was boredom, and boredom was life. Memoirs of the pre-21st century existence are rife with long stretches of tedium, no matter how much money you had to fritter away. I just thought that was pretty interesting because, we're always having to fill our time with something. We can't just be bored. We can't just be sitting down like, there's nothing to do and let our imagination drift. We either have to fill it with some type of technology, we have to put on our phone, we have to put on our music. There's never a type of instance where there's complete silence. I remember when I worked at a summer camp. I worked at this summer camp for maybe 2 summers. And the last summer that I attended, I was like 21. And the children that I worked with, there were about 100 children and 5 counselors. One of the children was bored. So I said, why don't you play this game? Why don't you play that game? He was a little boy, about 7. And he's like, no, I can't think. I said, well, why don't you just make up a game? Why don't you draw something? And he's like, I can't. I don't know what to draw. I said, use your imagination. He says, I don't know how. And when he said he didn't know how to use his imagination, he started crying. I feel like not allowing ourselves to have boredom, not allowing our minds to rest and give itself time for imagination is stifling our development. How many inventions came out of boredom? You're just sitting there, letting your mind wander, and you come up with $1 million idea. But we are creating a society where we're not allowing our minds to wander. We're always having to watch this or listen to that or go here or go there. You can't just sit and meditate and concentrate. It's probably why our attention spans are getting shorter and shorter and shorter by the year. The next thing that she lists is filing, and that's number 8. And the reason that this came to me is because I actually liked filing. I would actually have fun filing. I like putting things in order. She says, 4 standing files loom reproachfully in my garage, years after I've even attempted to rattle open one of their jam-prone metal closures. I haven't a clue what's in them anymore, but I also can't quite persuade myself that they're no longer necessary. They're my files, after all. One has always needed a place to hold the history of one's past and an alphabetical order. I'm like, girl, are you talking to me? I literally had a flashback when I read this chapter. I had files for days. I had my own files when I was maybe 14, and I would organize everything. I would organize my books. I would have labels and papers and binders. I even have my bucket book binder in files. I have all of my books filed. All of my books are in a Google Excel doc. cataloged with their prices and their titles and their authors. I worked in a library doing all of these different filings. I feel like filing, some people think it's just tedious. They're like, oh, it's so tedious, I can't find anything and blah, blah, blah. But it's physical. It's a physical thing. The physical paper is there. You're trying to just shove everything to the internet, which can possibly disappear, the digital file. All of a sudden, your files become incorruptible. But she says, the file cabinet was also part of every workspace and home office. There might be a maze of them in a storage room at the office in your basement or at home. For a writer, clips were essential. There was nothing elevated about the act of putting this all in order, the dread act of filing. No matter what your profession, if you were ever an intern, an executive assistant, an office manager, a clerk, or a catalog manager, you had to file. You filed and filed until your thumbs wore down, and only after you'd filed or climbed a few rungs on the corporate ladder could you hand the filing off to the person yet another rung down. The last time I officially filed for a job was in 2009. Was it 2009? No. It was probably 2010. 2009, 2010. And it was at an insurance office. That is literally the last time I filed. After that, everything just started getting digitized. Oh, we'll send you your Google Docs and blah, 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 send it here. And yeah, it's convenient and everything. But just imagine how many jobs were lost from just, I need somebody to file my papers. How many papers do we have now that we don't know where they are? Next thing that I found pretty interesting was number 22, which is private humiliation. All of my humiliation has been public. It says, before everyone carried around a camera, you could walk straight into a street pole and know that only 3 people saw, and 2 of them probably forgot it by the time they passed by, even as you stumbled and readjusted your glasses and tried to somehow make it look like you did it on purpose. During a lecture, you could blurt out a question that you might quickly realize is incredibly ignorant and possibly offensive, and then sit back down and try to blend in into the dark auditorium. But that's impossible, of course, because everybody has a camera, as she says, and everybody can share, and next thing you know, you're a meme. Now you're publicly humiliated in front of everyone, even if you didn't put it on the camera. People keep laughing at you, and it's been 10 years later. Like that Sharkeisha thing. I don't know, Starkeisha, I don't know. I guess it was on the Vine. That meme's still going around. You look at that photo, people like, oh yeah, that's Sharkeisha, that bite. The last time I was publicly humiliated was, I can't remember the year because it was so bad. It was so bad I blocked it out of my mind. And I don't know if there was footage of it, but I pray to God that there's no footage of what the hell happened to me. So I was doing some type of event. No, I was the MC of an event, and I was wearing a very short dress that I didn't know came up in the back. And, oh God, so embarrassing. So every time I would stand up, my skirt, my whole back dress lifted up in front of maybe 200 people. And I was on my cycle, so I had on like a pad so they could see that. And yeah, this happened 4 times in a row in one event. Nobody stopped me. They should have freaking stopped me. They should say, hey, Kiara, when you stand up, your whole dress comes up, but I didn't know that. So after the event, while we're eating cake, 3 people came up and said, hey, blah, 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 and everybody saw. And did you know I didn't go to that church again for 4 months. I just left one day. I was too humiliated to come back. And I guess everybody forgot, so thank God it wasn't filmed. But just imagine now living in a world where everything is filmed, even if there's something that you can't control. Somebody's recording it. And you could become a meme in the level and the amount of 2 seconds from a complete accident. Craziness. The next thing, letters to the editor. Now this was one thing that actually made me have a flashback because my mother, actually she still sells hair products, but my mother sold hair products and the hair products had a magazine that went along with it, right? And I loved reading these magazines when I was a child. I loved reading all of the different articles and looking at all the pictures and drawing the people in the pictures because it was a black magazine. But I specifically remember letters to the editor at the front of each magazine. But you don't really see those anymore. She says letters to the editor were the way that regular people who didn't necessarily have power in the wider world let the people who did have power know what they were thinking. It was one of the few avenues for readers and citizens to be heard by politicians and business leaders and public figures, and by the journalists who wrote about them. It says, because it was such a big deal to have your particular letter selected for print, people generally took care with whatever they wrote. You had to type up your missive, find an envelope, and track down where the heck the stamps were. You had to carry your letter to the nearest mailbox and wait several days to see if your carefully crafted thoughts might appear. All this work meant you had to feel pretty darn strong about the issue to bother. Not surprisingly, most people in the end wouldn't write the letter. Maybe they'd contemplate it in the heat of the moment, even compose a few lines. Then a few hours might go by, after which the movie critic didn't seem to exist anymore, or the article that important. Perhaps there were other things to do than spend time writing a letter about whatever it was that got you worked up in the first place. I've never written a letter to an editor, but I did write a letter to an author. Actually, it was an email to an author, never mind. Actually, no, I did write a letter to an author. It was James A. Emanuel, and he wrote back. And we only wrote like 2 letters, and then I didn't hear from him because, he died. But there was a scathing letter I sent to an author, a scathing email, and she wrote back, and we had a whole big argument, and that was when I was a teenager. So I get what she means about letters to the editor. Why those things ended. The reason they ended was because now you have Twitter. Now you have Instagram and Facebook and everything. You don't need to go through an editor. You can just go directly to the source that you're pissed off at. You can go directly to the source and tell them exactly how you feel without anybody except a moderator, filtering out your comment. It says, now, of course, the moment that white flash of pique strikes, you just fire off an email to the editor. The object of your indignation needn't know it's you because you can use a fake or anonymized account. You can curse away, tell the writer she's ugly, stupid, incompetent, not qualified, and should let some younger, better person have a job she is selfishly clinging to. And why take the trouble of writing to the editor at all when you can get at the true source of your ire, whether it's a politician, actor, director, or local bureaucrat, in so many other ways? Just put at the @. Sometimes I get in that mood too, but I try not to be too political. I just let it slide. I'm like, Kiara, calm down. They don't care. They're rich. They don't care. Their moderator's gonna read it. Next is birthday cards and handwritten letters. So I've combined these 2 together, but I'm going to read the handwritten letters. Page 147. So handwritten letters, me personally, I miss handwritten letters because I used to write handwritten letters, and the only reason I stopped is because people stopped writing back to me. They wouldn't write letters to me. They would just text or email me. mostly, or they'd like type on there. So that's eventually I stopped writing letters. In my storage, I have a box of letters from pen pals I had from all over the world and different people. I have a box of letters from one of my pen pals on death row. I don't know why I wrote to him. I don't know why I wrote to him. Literally, or why my mother allowed me to write to a death row inmate, but whatever. Birthday cards. I have my own cards. If you want to buy them, they're on my Zazzle store. But sometimes I'll send out my little cards, my little note cards of stuff. I'll do it for a birthday. I might send out holiday cards, but like you don't see that anymore. People don't want to take the time out to write something and then put it in the mail and send it off to you. The only time I do get something similar of that are from people who are older. I barely get it from people my age or even people younger because everything is digitized. There's nothing that is tangible. I have postcards from all over the world that I got in college from post crossing. Now the only way you can get a letter is if you go on, either you have to physically ask someone that you know and set it up where you guys write letters to each other, or you have to join some type of letter writing group in order to get letters in the mail. It says, who would throw away a personal letter? No one, not unless she was good and angry, and in that case the letter would be burned, at least in the movies, where it would be tossed into an open fireplace, or else lit by hand, and held until the recipient's fingers, newly ignited with symbolic fury. Otherwise, letters were tidily folded back into their original envelopes and tucked into files marked correspondence. Instead of letters, will future biographers comb through Facebook feeds, Twitter threads, email chains, and collected texts? Is there any choice? I thought that was pretty sad, actually, because I was thinking about that a couple of months ago. I was like, dang, most of my letters that I've written, besides these recent Christmas letters that I got, stopped in the year 2011. That's really when they all just kind of stopped coming to me. And I feel like now that we are moving towards a more digital world, which is already digitized, it's going to be less and less and less of personal because everything will be on a digital level. Nothing is going to seem real and tangible. You already have models, influencers scanning their entire body on machines so they can have a digital copy of themselves to rent out to different companies, to raise brand awareness and stuff. Like their bodies in their prime, going out wearing digital clothes. Everything is digital. Emails and letters are two different vibes. Emails are so cold, so calculating. You can't smell an email. You can't see like the scent of, feel the scent of a perfume on an email, or have a pressed flower fall out of your letter, out of your email. I just thought that was pretty sad. I wish I could show you some of the I really wish I could show you some of the letters I got as a child, but all of them are in storage. It's a huge box. Letters, birthday cards, graduation cards. Number 43 is ignoring people, which I wish I could do, but I can't. It says, it was useful to pretend to have no idea someone was trying to reach you when you could actually get away with it. How would they have known? You were out. You were sleeping. You were busy. You were away. You had an emergency. You didn't get the message, and you are only just hearing about this now. It was possible and believable to be off the grid. Someone else could pick up the landline when it rang and say you weren't home. If you worked in the office, someone else could answer the phone and tell them you were unavailable. Sorry. But it sucks. I tried to escape one time, one year. I didn't talk to anybody for 9 days. And you know what happened? They called the police to do a wellness check. I'm like, God, I can't even... Do I have to, like, inform people that I'm not talking? Like, you're not answering the phone. You're not on Facebook. What's wrong, Kiara? I want to be an actual human being. That's what I want. But you won't allow me to be. You won't allow me to be in solitude. You won't allow me to not pick up the phone. You won't allow me to just leave Facebook without a word or ghost people. Like, you won't allow that. You thinking something wrong or something physical happened to me. I think that's why people's anxiety has increased, because they feel like they can't escape. Even if they've unplugged, there's still people out there like, where are you? Where are you? Where are you? Grabbing at them, grabbing at them, grabbing at their aura. Why aren't you answering the phone? Why aren't you answering my text? Why aren't you answering my message? You're offline, but I see you responded to that person. Like, can I just be? Please? Shoot. But you can't. And then if you take time for yourself, people think you got a problem. They're like, oh, they full of themselves. Oh, you're not good enough to talk to me? I feel like if we just normalize just letting people like not answer the phone, not answer the text, not even answer social media, I think all of the cases of like nervous breakdowns would literally go down. Panic attacks too. Because you always feel like you're being watched by somebody somewhere, no matter where you go. They're always clinging to you. The next thing on her list, which I felt deep in my soul, was toys and games. It's number 52. She says every year and only once a year, the Toys R Us Super Toy Run would give some insanely lucky kid the run of the store, letting him fill an entire shopping cart. Colorful rectangular boxes of Operation Life and Risk, stuffed animal after stuffed animal. She said, ovens that baked brownies that tasted like Play-Doh, but were nonetheless profoundly desirable. You could hardly fathom what it would be like to win. You can imagine, but you imagine just enough to make you sick with envy of the inconceivable few who did. And she says, remember what it's like to make time for toys and games outside of chess championships, to invite a friend over after school to play Hungry Hungry Hippos before the little white balls all bounced off to their forever lost corners. Wrap us up and find us new homes at birthday parties. Let us light up children's eyes with amazement and fill their afternoons with pleasure. I remember I didn't realize that I hadn't seen any children with toys until one day I was working in the library. I was working in one of the locations. And that was the same year I hadn't really seen a child dressed like a child. And all of a sudden, here comes this little girl, well, not ironically, in the children's section with her parents. It was a little girl. She was like 10. And she had pigtails. She had overalls. And she had a doll. And when I say I gasped, I didn't even mean to gasp out loud. But I literally gasped out loud. And she heard me and she's like, hi. The reason I gasped was because it had been such a long time since I actually saw a child dressed like a child. But it had also been a long time since I had seen a child with a toy. I used to see children that had like teddy bears and little dolls. They'd have even little toy cars, G.I. Joes. And now all they have is the phone. I remember when LeapPad, or no, was it LeapPad? It was either LeapPad or Leapfrog first came out. Like, you already had, like, the Walkman and everything. You had, like, oh, this is the Walkman, this is the Playboy. No, not Playboy. Game Boy. I had a Game Boy, I think. A Sega Genesis, all of that. But there was something about Leapfrog that triggered in me, like, okay, something is really changing. Something is changing with toys. It wasn't, you started seeing more digital toys and less just toys that didn't have technology attached to them. Even when you had a doll, the doll had to talk. The doll had to have some type of computer code that was attached to a website somewhere where you could play with your friends and buy tickets and everything. You couldn't just have a regular doll. I barely see anybody playing with board games unless their family is involved in board games. That's why one person, she doesn't work at the library anymore. She worked for the public library. She started game day, so the children could play board games, because they weren't playing board games. They're just playing digital video games. I have yet to go to a house with children where the whole family is playing a game, like even having a game night. It's kind of disturbing. I played games as a child. I mean, I played video games and everything, but I also have Barbies. I had my little books. I had my dolls. Just using my imagination. I feel that every single toy being technology is not allowing the child to just use their full brain. I mean, I know they're like, oh, it's educational and everything they're learning. Okay, that's nice, but why don't you push it further where they're actually creating everything in their mind? And then some of these toys, like, for example, like with the Furbies, you start hearing creepy stories about Furbies. Like, they're not coming on, or not, like, they're talking without batteries, or they have cameras, or they're spying through them. I feel kind of with some of these technology toys, they could be used as a spy tool, especially if they're connected to some offline or some website that you like. Your doll or your toy is connected to that website. It's just getting to be too much. But this is our fault. This is society's fault, or at least American society's fault, because we're just trying to get rid of childhood, or at least the powers that be trying to get rid of childhood. They're trying to get rid of childhood clothes. They're trying to get rid of childhood activities. They're just trying to eliminate childhood. And I really think the internet isn't the key result of that. It's just a part of a greater agenda to eliminate childhood from this society and turn them into older, sexualized consumers. The next one is wondering about the weather, and that's on page 152. No, it's not. What? I don't know where wondering the weather is, so we're going to skip about that. The next one is sleepaway camp. And sleepaway camp is basically like you're at a camp away from your parents. It says your parents had no idea whether you loved sleepaway camp or hated it, and it made no difference anyway. Sleepaway camp was a parent-free zone. You could eat Cocoa Puffs for breakfast. You could be the miserable kid confined to a lower bunk bed that everyone short sheets, or the girl who hangs out with the lazy, sleazy counselor from the boys' side. They didn't have a clue whether you were taking the swimming lessons you promised to take. So this is old sleepaway camp. New sleepaway camp, the parents can look, they have cameras. They see daily updates on the camp's little social media website. Used to have to write letters to your parents at the sleepaway camp. I went to camp a lot when I was a child, mostly to the Lake of the Ozarks. That's where we would go. I loved going to the Lake of the Ozarks, and it was usually through church. So there were 2 times where I decided as a child that I did not want to go to camp anymore. Like, I felt very uncomfortable. The first time was when I was 8. And I was in the Lake of the Ozarks with another church, and this girl got hit in the head with a metal bat. Yeah, she got slammed in the head with a metal bat. She was bleeding. I think she got knocked out. Her mother was there, so I don't remember what happened to her. She did survive. But I just felt uncomfortable as an 8-year-old being out in the middle of nowhere with these people. And worrying, like, if I got injured, who would be there for me? Even though it would be adults. But, I mean, if the girl's mother wasn't there, how would they have handled it? You know? Sometimes the parent being there will save the child's life because they know what's best for their child. They saw the actual incident happen. They know what to do. They don't have to like, oh no, the parent is going to sue us. The next and final time I went to sleepaway camp, I was 12. And that's when I decided I just didn't want to go to camp anymore. I just felt very uncomfortable. It was my main church. I was the Lake of the Ozarks again. And the reason I wanted to stop going was I felt like I wasn't being monitored enough. I know that's kind of strange, but I was afraid something would happen to me. I was not being monitored. I was going into a cave by myself, but there was nobody watching me. Nobody knew where I was. I was by a lake, the Lake of the Ozarks. They were letting us wander. We had like this late night curfew. So just imagine like 12-year-olds and it's like midnight in the middle of the Lake of the Ozarks. Like anything could happen. So I just got really concerned with my own personal safety. I said, you know what? These people aren't watching me. They're not making sure I'm safe. They're not making sure we're all in bed by a certain time. I don't trust these people. I could have been kidnapped. And this is what I thought at 12. I'm like, I could have been kidnapped. They could have thrown me in the lake. Somebody could have done something in the cave. I don't know who these people are. Anybody could have taken me. I'm not going to camp again. And that was the last time I went to camp. Right now, I don't have children, but I just can't imagine me personally sending my child off to a sleepaway camp. I literally don't trust anybody. I don't. If my child is going camping, I'm going camping. I can't watch these children. I can't watch these counselors. Yeah, no. Next thing that we lost to the internet, and she didn't mention that in there because I think she was trying to keep like a happy-go-lucky type of tune, but that was really the reason why I stopped going to sleepaway camp. A lot of people have memories and stuff. Oh, I met my friend there. Look, times have changed. It's a whole different ballgame. No. Penmanship. It says, in 6th grade, I got an unsatisfactory, the dour euphemism for an F at Main Street School in penmanship on my report card. My lowercase h did not begin, as it should have, from the bottom, but started instead with the top curlicue, an approach I'd perfected in my efforts to develop a signature style, an extravagance that didn't fly with Miss Harper. And she says that a lot of the children nowadays, they don't even know penmanship. And I can believe that because a lot of them don't know geography either. Even though geography and penmanship are two different things. But it's like every year the school would take out something and it would show up in an after-school program to supplement what the school got rid of. It said, penmanship is no longer considered worthy of grading at all. The Common Core curriculum emphasizes legible handwriting only for kindergartners and first graders before toggling over to keyboard instruction. Now me, I was forced to write in penmanship or in cursive. I had to write in cursive from 1st grade all the way through 7th grade in pencil. That's why I never use pencil. I only use ink pen for everything. This is an example of some of my cursive. If you can read it, I don't know if it's switched backwards or not. I wrote my name. They were very, very adamant that we have very neat handwriting. So that's why I don't really write in cursive anymore. I always write in print. Wish I could show you some of my print. Most of my print is, like, here's some of my print. It's affirmations for teeth. My little print. I try to write as neatly as possible. Oh, shoot. Everybody's falling. Shoot. Anyway. Next thing, movie theaters. That is page 217. And she talks about, you know, just going to the movie theater, experiencing buying overpriced popcorn, people not being on their phones. You were just immersed in the movies. I can't remember the last time I went to a movie theater. I literally can't remember. I can't remember. I went to go see a movie by myself. I think it was, I don't know which movie it was, but it was at the Chase Plaza. And I was the only person in the theater, and it was fantastic. I think I might do that again, just start going to movie theaters. But now everything's digitized. It's like, oh, we gotta get Netflix, we gotta get such and such a thing. Oh, we can stream the movie in our house, and this is so boring. I want to go out. I want to go see things. The last movie I went to see as like a date was Black Panther, and that was a good movie experience because everybody was dressed in African clothes and everything. It had a whole vibe to it. But I miss movie theaters. Hopefully they'll come back. I know now they've been doing drive-in theaters because of the pandemic. So hopefully that'll be something that will stay, where we just have outdoor movie theaters. And the last is Blind Date, which is page 220. It's number 88. And she basically talks about like how blind dates now aren't really blind. Like you can look at the person's Instagram, you can look at their, you can look at their social media and kind of get a feeling about them, but it's not like meeting them in person, you know? It's not like you think you don't like them until you actually meet them. I had that experience where I was just like, I really wasn't into the guy until I actually met him in person, and then I was like, love at first sight with the dude. I mean, that happened. And we had been talking for a few months when I met him. We were primarily online, so I hadn't met him in person. But then there were other cases where I had a blind date, that one wasn't blind. But I had a blind date where on paper I should have liked the dude. He was my age. This was maybe a year or two ago. No, hold up. This was in 2020. He was... on paper, I should have liked him. He was black. He was like 6'5". He had a car. Well, I don't care about cars. He had a nice car. He had a $60,000 a year job. He had 0 kids. He was very intelligent. He had a career where he would use his brain. He was like some software engineer or whatever. On paper, I should have liked him. But his downfall was believing that lynching didn't happen in the modern day. And I'm like, I can't date a black dude that dumb. I'm going to be in danger. That was my deal breaker. And that was the last blind date that I went on, because I'm just like, you know what? I think I'm going to trust myself more than having somebody else do it. But I don't know. There's also another blind date that I went on that really didn't work, and the guy said I had to go to the bathroom, and he completely disappeared, and I never saw him again. So yeah, hopefully, I don't know, the internet can bring your love interest to you. That part I don't mind. That part I don't think we've lost in the internet. I actually think the internet made that better, because now you can reach people from far away, but at the same time you have access to everybody. So I don't know. It really all depends. Like the guy I'm talking to now out of town, I met him on the internet. I don't even know who messaged who. I met my one ex on the internet, and we were together for ages. My friend met her husband on the internet. I know a couple of people met their spouses online or through dating apps. So it has its uses. So yeah, that's all I wanted to share with you. I hope that you enjoyed this video, and happy reading to you.